In this video, we're going to be looking at nested selection and nested iteration. This is part 2 of a two-part video for AQA's GCSE in computer science. Let's recap what we learnt in part 1. What is nesting? Nesting is where we have one or many programming constructs inside of another. In this example, I have a selection nested inside of a selection. It is possible to have a variety of combinations such as iteration inside of a selection inside of an iteration inside of an iteration, and the one shown in the example, a selection inside of a selection. Nesting can be built up over and over to include many possibilities and pass for the program to follow. It allows for complex decisions to be made. Let's step through part of the flowchart to see how it works. The program starts at the start point. It comes down to the first selection. If game end equals true, it's basically checking if the game has come to an end. There are two paths the program can take here, the false path or the true path. If the game hasn't ended, it would go down the false path and it would print out loading next level. However, if the game had ended, it would have gone down the true path and landed at the nested selection. This has two paths. If game score is greater than high score, well then it would go down the true path and it would print out new high score. However, if game score was not higher than the high score, it would have gone down the false path and printed out, sorry, you didn't beat the high score. Here you can clearly see that the one selection is inside of the other selection. Notice the indenting. It makes it easier to see that the one selection is nested inside of the other. This is really important, as when you convert this pseudocode to code later on, some programming languages like Python actually require you to put the code in the indented state. Here I've taken away the indenting, and you'll notice that it's now really difficult to see where the nesting takes place. Although some languages don't require you to indent, it's actually a very good skill to get into, because later on when you're debugging your code or improving it, it makes it easier to read and follow. See if you can convert the pseudocode from the previous slide into the actual Python code. In fact, here's the pseudocode. I'm going to go through it now to help you. It references three variables: game end, game score and high score. You'll need to declare those variables and give them a value in order to get your code working. I'm going to show the answer in 3 seconds, so if you want to have a go at this, I'd advise you pause the video now. 1, 2, 3. Here's my answer. You could try changing the variable values for game end, game score and high score to see how the nested selection affects these. Let's take a look at an example for nested iteration. Once the program started, it would come down to the for x in the range of 1 to 10. Now this is the first time it's run, so x at this point would be equal to 1. It would then go inside and be landed at the nested loop for y in the range of 1 to 10. And at this point, because it's the first time it's run, y would be equal to 1. So it would go inside of this loop. Ants equals x times y. Well, we know x is 1 from the first loop and we know y is 1 from the second loop. So 1 times 1 would give us 1. This is then outputted to the screen as shown on the left hand side. It would then come back round this nested loop and y would now be 2. And it would repeat this process again. So this time ants equals x, well x is 1 inside the loop currently and y is 2. So it would be 1 times 2 and it would output the answer, and it would come around again and it would be 1 times 3, 1 times 4 and so on, and we'd get the result shown here on the left hand side. So you can see here that the section in red would loop round until the condition is met of y in the range of 1 to 10, and it's met at the point that y becomes 9. We would then go back up to the top loop. Now the top loop is from x in the range of 1 to 10. Now x is currently 1, so we're not complete. So x would become 2 and it would go round the loop again. So x is now 2, it would come back down to the red section and it would go through this again and we'd end up with this output. And it would do this all the way until x is equal to 9, and this would complete the nested iteration. So you will have noticed that what it's actually doing, it's printing out from the 1 times table all the way through to the 9 times table. Here is the pseudocode for the flowchart on the previous page. You can see that the loop highlighted in red has another loop nested inside of it, shown here, highlighted in green. Every time the loop in red loops, it will increment x by 1. It will then call the loop shown in green every time, and this will continue until the condition is satisfied and x reaches 9. A great way to understand nested iteration is to use the times tables. So you can see here on the right hand side, I've printed out the 1 times table, the 2 times table and the 3 times table. Now for the examples on the previous slide, it went up to the 9 times table. Could you use the pseudocode here and convert it into Python code and see if you could get it to print out the tables from 1 all the way through to 9? If you want to have a go at that, you need to pause because I'm going to show the answer in 1, 2, 3. So here is my answer. You will have noticed that it prints out the 1 times table all the way through to the 9 times table that I said previously. Now notice line 6. On line 6 I have placed in a blank print. The reason for doing this is so that it separates the times tables. You'll also notice on line 2 that I've put the, x, times table. And what I've done is I've used the value of x, in other words, to tell me what times table it is. So I've been quite clever with how I've done this. So have a play with it, see if you can get it to do up to the 20 times table. It's quite easy to change the parameters to do that. Here's an example of some Python code for a menu that uses nested selection. Feel free to pause the video at this point and discuss with your class friends what would happen if you entered different values at line 1 and line 6. Here's another example using Python. This one's a little bit more complex in the sense that it's got multi-levels of nesting. It's got a while loop that's got a nested for loop, and inside of that for loop we've got a selection, which is an if statement nested inside of it. So you can see 3 levels. Feel free to copy this one out and see what it does. Have a play with it, see if you can improve it. Let's recap. Nesting occurs when one probing construct or many are inside of another. The most common ones we see are a selection nested inside of another selection, a loop inside of another loop, a loop inside of a selection, or a selection inside of a loop. These are not the only ones. It is possible to have multiple layers of nesting. For example, a selection inside of a selection inside of a selection inside of a loop. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. Please remember to check out our other videos within our playlist.